Welcome to another episode of the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. So, we didn't think we could do this season without talking about the NDIS and what is happening in the NDIS. Today, we want to unpack what our approach has been so far, what we're doing in terms of communication with our teams, and how we're managing the uncertainty that is the NDIS at the moment. I cannot wait to connect with you guys on this topic and keep the conversation going. Let's get stuck in. We are child development obsessed business besties and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzy Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist.
And this is the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. All right, NDIS, big one.
Oh, bombshell that's stressing everybody out at the moment.
I know. Is it stressing you out?
No, it's not stressing me. I think I don't know, but I feel like being in business for over 10 years, almost 11 years now, you become a bit seasoned. You become a bit, hopefully a bit more resilient. But
I was going to say resilience. I don't feel very resilient at the moment, but not in relation to NDIS. That's like a side topic.
What Liz is referring to is we've always got lots of things going on in our lives. We've got this podcast is one part of our lives. We've got multiple businesses that we run, our families, our friends, our houses, all of that, which is life, right? But no, the NDIS is not stressing me out. I think that's a mindset thing, and I've had to learn that in business. I had to learn that in business pretty quickly, because if you get stressed out by all external things that come your way, whether it's NDIS, whether it's different children coming with different types of funding, different changes to the system, I would just be a basket case. So I had to learn pretty quickly to know that, I guess it's a mindset thing, right? Like, know that things will work out, and we just have to wait and see how things go, have a bit of a systematic yet cautious approach to things, like a mindset. Know that, I didn't know this initially when I opened my business, but now I know that I have the business skills to pivot. We had to do that in COVID. I know that I've got the skills to pivot, and I know that if I don't need to know all the answers now, and I know that whatever outcomes happen, or whatever papers they release, or whatever definitions they release, we will learn. We will be able to change, pivot, and adjust as we need to, which I think that's just purely mindset. That's mindset.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's about having faith that we are providing a service that is needed and backing the service that we provide and coming from a place of service. So if we're providing a service that is really needed, it will be funded in some way, shape, or form. What is happening with the NDIS is concerning. I'm not specifically losing sleep about it, but it's definitely concerning, to the point where we've actually had a couple of participants lose funding for exercise physiology specifically, with some outrageous reasons, which has forced me into right, I'm going to get on my, going to start advocating for us. And I've been on the phone to ESSA. I've had a really interesting conversation with them, which I want to share a bit about today. And just, some of my own thoughts. But I think at the end of the day, we need to back ourselves in terms of the industry and professions that we're working in, with the services that we're providing. And we know there's a need, there's a huge need. So I think if we just kind of come back to that and realize that we can only control the controllables, which is ourselves and our business and how resilient our business is in the market, then hopefully we can feel a little bit better about it.
Absolutely. You can't control what they're going to put at you. You can only control yourself. Do you want to talk a bit more about the things that you've learned from NDIS with reporting and what you've done with your children losing funding?
Yeah, sure. So we have just in the last week or maybe 2 weeks lost 3 clients. They've lost funding for exercise physiology, which we're hearing quite a bit, although, that kind of negativity sort of escalates, doesn't it? And it gets a bit gossipy. So the trend that I've seen is that it's actually older, like young adults that have lost funding. That's our experience right now. But when I had that conversation with Essa, they said they want to know what the trend is. And so, very small trend, but that's what we have seen. And so I'm really interested to, hear about what other people are experiencing. But we had one, and the feedback was that exercise physiology does not help people with autism, which, like, I just had my blood boiling, obviously. So I straight away called Essa and spoke to a lovely Essa advocate, and we had a really good conversation. And I think talking about this is the first step, isn't it? And providing feedback to the people or the governing bodies that are advocating for us. So she told me a few things. One was that S is actually running a NDIS webinar with the sector of NDIS that is responsible for making the decisions, I think is what she said. But we've got an opportunity to ask questions. So she said that would be really valuable. I think they're doing a couple, but I haven't currently seen any links to that. So I'm going to follow up on that. Hopefully by the time this episode's out, that will have been because it was November 20 that they were saying that's starting. But she also said that it's really coming down to reporting. And this was I kind of suspected this because I feel like the reporting is kind of undervalued. Like, it's really important what we're putting in those reports. She clarified that or agreed with that, and she said that we need to have objective measures in there. We need to have progress. We need to have clinical reasoning for the progress or the digression. Is that the right word? Going backwards.
Diagnosis. What are you talking about?
So basically, if they're progressing or they're failing to progress or they're maintaining, we need to be able to explain. Regress.
Yeah, regression.
Regress. Yeah, regression. Oh my gosh, mind blank.
That's the speechy. That's the English there.
Yes. So yeah, we need to be able to have clinical reasoning as to why we would be seeing that. We need to clinically justify why we are recommending our intervention, and it needs to be all clinically backed with data. So a couple of things came up in and around that. I said, for exercise physiologists specifically, like assessing and reporting is obviously something that I'm unpacking a lot at the moment. And when you're working with really high needs, complex conditions and children, getting those objective measures can be really difficult. And I said, what if we're not getting, an objective measure because they can't participate? And, a lot of what I would be saying would be observational. It'd still be quantitative, but perhaps not standardized testing, right? So she said, well, that would be a really good question to ask in this webinar. So I think, I think it's important for us to know that that's what we need. That's the sort of information we need to have in those reports. The other thing that I've picked up on the three participants that we've lost funding for is that we in those three specific cases, and this could be coincidental, but we haven't collaborated in those three instances with the other allied health professionals. And I think that is really important so that we are advocating for each other. So it's like, these are the NDIS goals. The exercise physiologist is working on this in this way. The OT is working with them on this in this way. The speech is working with them on these goals in this way. And I think if we're all advocating for one another, we're going to be more likely to secure funding, because we can say that, we might have the same goal, but the way in which we get there is different, I guess. She also said, yeah, go.
I was going to say, is that why they said exercise physiology wouldn't help autism? Because they thought that the goal is the same and an OT works on that.
Maybe.
Right. Okay.
Maybe.
It's a little bit more vague, I guess, for your industry. Like, you've just always said exercise physiology is still developing, still growing, particularly in pediatrics. You've got that fight as well as then the NDIS fight.
Exactly. And that's why our reporting needs to be like amazing. And we need to be networking with the other allied health professionals, and the other allied health professionals need to see value in us. So we need to do that education piece. It's really, really important. She also said that they're getting a lot of reports that are just really long and really detailed, and they just need the data. They just need the data and the clinical reasoning. So I think that was a really good perspective. It needs to be like detailed, data specific, clinical justification.
And functional, needs to have the functional outcome, because that's what NDIS is totally focused on, is those functional outcomes. So if you're working on a concept that is really low level, but it relates, in the long term to a functional outcome. So whether that's riding a bike or doing a cartwheel, whether that's going to the toilet training. So you need to actually highlight that functional relevance, because that's what NDIS are looking for, and that's what they're highlighting.
Yeah. And that is coming back to their specific NDIS goals, right? Like it needs to be coming back to their goals, which I feel like is kind of obvious, but maybe it's not. So you need to be linking back to their specific NDIS goal, and then having your therapy goals, which feed in to those NDIS goals.
Yes. I think, it doesn't really matter what you think. If they've put their NDIS goals on the plan, you have to make that correlate, because that person is going to have the plan in front of them and then be looking at, okay, these are the goals that they've identified in the plan. And then as a therapist, what are they doing? If they're not doing anything that's of relevance to those goals, they're going to go cut. So you have to make sure that they are corresponding, and that like you've said, you've given a reasoning for it and how it goes together.
Yeah.
And I get that. Like, I get it is probably, as a therapist, it's tempting to write a lot of information. But if you've got like hundreds of applications and things that you're going through, you're just literally going through and looking for the key points. And the more like structured it could be, I guess, would it be helpful. So if like things are bold or highlighted or in paragraphs or formatted, that's going to help the person read it better and go straight to the point. I get that. So that's really good advice for a therapist. That's amazing news. You don't want to be spending hours on a report. Yeah. So it needs to be thorough. It needs to be succinct. I would say like 2 pages max, not even that. One.
Yeah. And I just think when I was looking at some reports, there's quite a lot of fluff in there, and I don't think we need the fluff. Like, let's make this evidence-based, clear, concise.
And I think you keep it clear and concise with formatting. Even if you had a nice template that you developed. So, you had your introduction, goal, rationale, evidence, research, functional implications. You just have headings and you can put information under that. That would also help make it really easy, but it will help guide you to make sure you have the right information in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So paperwork, that's a good thing to know about.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think, it comes back to what we've said so many times, is just really backing yourself on that knowledge front. and
Mhm.
knowing what's in your scope and how you're influencing a child from, evidence-based practice. And if you don't know that knowledge,
Find
you know,
it. Get
find
there.
it.
Get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for you guys, so you're like more coming from the position that we need to advocate and we need to educate. On the
Mm.
flip side, for us as species, I think the danger with us is we go into assumption because we think, oh, speech therapist, everybody knows what a speech pathologist does.
Mm.
We don't have that issue that EPs have. But on the other side, then we go, everybody knows what we do. So we don't need to be strong with our justifications because we just assume that everyone will know that speech is important. But what is coming out, like in the first report that was released by the NDIS, the only thing covered under speech pathology there was dysphagia. So that actually shows us we are listed like down the line, like in all the foundational supports and things, but it shows us that we also need to be equally as strong with our rationales and our justifications. And we need to make sure that we've got everything up to date. And we don't, as species or, OTs or physios, they're a bit more well known. We don't write our reports with assumption. So
Mm.
I think that's how it affects us. And so you've just got to always, when you're writing your reports, think, I'm writing my report, like this person who's reading it is an 18-year-old. So you keep it simple, direct, concise, to the point, but also you have evidence and research.
Oh, an 18-year-old with thousands of reports in front of them
Yeah.
making calls. So I think just if we think about it from that perspective and we want it to be,
On
think about
point.
it from that perspective. Yeah,
So
exactly.
yes, so reporting is a big thing. So I think if you're in a business, so whatever setting you're working in, if you're in a private practice, a school, if you're in a community health center, it's getting together with your team and looking objectively at your reporting and how you can make sure that you're all doing things at the same level, but you're getting the most important information in there. So reporting is essential for us as allied health professionals in getting our children the funding and advocating for them. However, there are going to be children that lose funding because they're breaking it up into ages. Like you said, Lizzy, the younger kids, they've always done this. They prioritize the early intervention. The older children, 7 or 8 and above, it's more difficult there because you've got to be proving that they're lifelong conditions and that they impact. So even before all these changes came out, like we were finding kids with ADHD wouldn't get approved because yes, it's a lifelong condition, but it can be managed. So it's just
Mm.
making sure that functional implication is really highlighted there for your older children as well. And there's new information coming out every day about NDIS. I think the main thing is, like, we could say so much, but then it probably will change again next week, all the specifics about
Yeah.
it. But the main thing is that you're connected with the right sources and you're getting the information from the right sources. There's so many different agencies out there, like third parties and things, and they will just do a blog about what they think, but it's making sure that the information you're getting is correct and reputable. So that's directly from the government websites, directly from the NDIS website. There's an email that I always subscribe to that someone else recommended that always gives the right information. I think it's NCS. I'll get that and I'll pop that in the link below. It's an organization and they will always send emails when an update is given out. So that's how I tend to stay on top of things. And then also, I don't know if EPs have this, but we have different groups for species and people would
Mm.
post in there about the changes and the updates and things like that. And links.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of forums, like Lizzy said, there's a couple of forums you can jump on and actually have a say in the changes, and everyone's voice matters in this. And the people at the top make the decisions. We don't know whether they're allied health professionals, whether they're EP species. My guess is probably not. So it's important that we represent our industry and we represent our families by attending those forums or writing to our governing bodies so they can submit things on our behalf as well, and
Yeah.
keeping people posted.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
I think it would be good, maybe, Lizzy, to potentially touch on maybe from a business point of view,
Yep.
what to do. Because I know we originally started this podcast thinking, new grads will be listening and we love you. But we've also realized that a lot of business owners are listening to this, or people who are thinking of opening their own businesses, or sole traders. So I thought it might be good just to do a little section for you guys. And then I guess if you're an employee or a contractor working for those people, you could always recommend this episode to them, or you could take this into meetings and things like that and suggest. But also on the flip side, you want to make sure, as if you're an employee or contractor, that your job is secure and that is not going to be disrupted by these NDIS changes. So maybe some things to look out for in the business that you're with to make sure that that business is tracking along and that you feel at peace doing your job and not worried or anxious. So do you have any business tips, Lizzy? I've got a few.
Well, I
Yeah.
think one thing that we do that I think has caused me not to worry too much is that we are not just servicing NDIS clients. So we've got we're like 50% private. So I think that that is a really important strategy to have. I think, yeah, is something that every business should be doing. Is there needs to be different products, I guess, and services within your business.
Yeah, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. As a business owner, I've learned that too. That's one of the things that we've done. So we're
Yeah.
always looking at, we're pretty much 50. It does fluctuate each month, but we have 50% of non-NDIS funded clients and 50% of NDIS clients. So there are agencies and disability companies out there that are purely NDIS clients. And I think, those companies will be safe as long as you're seeing level 2, level 3 complex children. The issue is if you've got level 1, or even if you've got level 2, but there's no clear diagnosis, other diagnoses and things like that, that's where it gets a little bit, uncertain. There's an uncertainty there whether they'll keep their funding. But from a business point of view, if you've got a split of different revenue coming into your business, that will help you. Because say NDIS gets totally wiped tomorrow, you'll still have 50% of your business, or we'll still have 50% of our business. And so if your business is 60-40, 70-30, like 70 on NDIS, 30 non-NDIS, that's probably a goal that I'd be having, is you can't, like, it's really difficult because ethically you need to make sure that you're servicing the children that come in and you've got your waiting list, but maybe employing more marketing strategies out in the community. And that's another thing that I was going to speak about is marketing. If you've opened your business within the last, how long has NDIS been here? Like 8 years? Because see, I had my business before NDIS started. So did you, Lizzy. And so the other thing is I have had a business without NDIS and we were fine. So you've got to also remember that the world existed before NDIS. There were different funding sources and, that business ran. So it is different. But before NDIS, I never really experienced a huge waiting list in my clinic. And I had to market, and I had to learn the skill of marketing as a business owner. And, I did GP visits. I went out into the community. I went to play groups. I was speaking to mums in family groups. And that is like those on the ground marketing. It's marketing, but it's connection, right? And relationships. Whereas now, since NDIS has started, people have just been so overwhelmed with clients that all marketing has had to go out the window, because you're like, we don't want any more, we've got enough. But that's a really easy thing and a very basic thing in business, to generate clients for yourself without the NDIS. And that's something you can actively do in your communities. It might even just be getting your signage fixed up at the front so that people drive past and they see your clinic all of the time. You can put little flags out on the road, little signage. Marketing is a whole nother topic in itself and a whole nother ball game in itself. So, we could probably do a whole nother episode for business owners on that. But I think marketing, we can all market. So if you're not marketing, start marketing, figure out, like do a course with someone who does marketing, talk to somebody who does marketing for their business. and then figure out how you can make
Contract.
your ratios.
You can contract marketers, marketing
Yes.
people
Yeah.
to assist. I mean, I think you can get VAs now that are pretty marketing savvy. So there's so many options out there. And I
Yeah.
think
Ads
that
on social
it's,
media.
yeah, it's
Pay.
not going to hurt, right? I
Yeah.
think it's
Absolutely not. Like, and we should be marketing. Like, that's just a skill that's probably gone by the wayside as when
for
NDIS
speeches,
came up.
maybe, not EPs. EPs
Yeah.
have to market ourselves. We're
I think
constantly
I'm talking to
marketing
speeches
ourselves.
and definitely OTs, maybe physios.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Um,
Absolutely.
I think as well in business, I have learned not to, you do need to move quickly, but we don't make snap decisions. And we always try and bring
Mm.
a high level of discernment into our decisions. Discernment is not procrastination. So, two different things. Procrastination is I've got two decisions to make. I just can't pick a side. I'm just going to sit on it. Discernment is we're sitting on it while we investigate and we research and we're actively doing things to make a
Mhm.
decision. And discernment is we could go this way and have this consequences, this way and this consequences, and we're active in that process.
Calculated. Yeah.
Yes. So I think it is good to move quickly, but don't make snap decisions that aren't sound. And don't make snap decisions that are really big that will impact your clinic massively unless you are 110% sure. So like big decisions may be closing your clinic down. Big decisions may be selling your clinic, even though that doesn't happen quickly. Big decisions might be like, we need to lay off five speeches, five OTs, two EPs, admin, because we're scared of this. There are, you know, there are decisions that you should make in business, but nothing should be done rushing like that. You need to have time to think things through. Don't just read one paper from the NDIS and be like, right, we've got to change everything. Because that
Yeah.
can be the temptation. That can be the temptation. And I think it's just
It's,
being
I think
calculated
it's,
and intentional.
yeah. And I think it's moving from reactive to being proactive, right? Like if we're proactive about building a resilient business, then, you know, even if we are reactive, it's not going to
Yes.
be as big. And I
No,
think that
you're not going to
is
make big
really
snaps
important.
decisions like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, it's just like most people would say, oh, I would never do that. But when push comes to shove, I've learned this from my mistakes. That's why I'm saying it, not because I've never done it. I have made
Yeah.
really impulsive snap decisions and I have learned, wow, that was the really wrong thing to do. Hindsight's a beautiful thing,
Mm,
but you've really got to go, no, like this is important, this decision. I need to make sure making the right decision. That would also look like talking to a mentor, running something past someone that's a third party that's not involved in your business, because then it can get very emotional, very close to home. Yeah, definitely speaking to
absolutely.
somebody. But then when you speak to somebody, don't speak to someone who, unless they've got time and you can give them the history, you make sure that you speak to someone who knows your business to give you the right advice, because you can then go to somebody and say, what do you think? But if you haven't given the whole story, they actually might give you the wrong advice, and that's not on them, that's on you, because you've not given them enough information and people just will make decisions based on what you've told them. Again, I'm speaking
Yeah,
from experience.
same. And I'm like 100% have done that. It's about doing your own due diligence. So if someone, you know, gives you a solution, then you need to do your due diligence to work out if that is going to work for your business,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And you don't, just because someone's giving you advice doesn't mean you have to take that on board. So
That's
sometimes we
right.
feel obliged to be doing what that person said because we asked for advice, which is like, again, been there, done that. So you've just got to go, okay, I'm going to ask this person's advice, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to put it as one piece on my big decision-making board and then go, how does this work in? Does this sit right? And then put all the pieces together, including your own gut feeling in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think practically, if you're a business owner, make sure that you are having discussions with your clinicians about the things that are going to happen so that they don't feel ambushed by parents in sessions. So talk to your clinicians about their communication with their parents. I think a big one is teaching your clinicians how to talk about money and negotiate discussions like that. Because like Lizzy, you've said that you've had 3 clients lose their funding. We've had clients come in, and my girls previously haven't been used to speaking about money because we haven't had to, because these people are like, whatever, we've got funding, that's fine, just charge it to the funding.
Yeah.
And so previously, before NDIS, we had to be really savvy as clinicians in talk and being okay talking about money with parents. And if you've never done that or haven't had to do that, that can be super daunting, super challenging, but it doesn't have to be. And so talking with your clinicians about how they can negotiate with their clients, how they can work with their clients with communication, talk about money, talk about the fees, but then what mindset they should be having so that they don't feel, reactive with people losing funding and people not affording therapy.
Absolutely. And I think, on that, knowing what your obligations are, because let's not, I guess, discredit what's going on in terms of what NDIS is doing. That the whole reason they're doing this is because it's not maintainable, because there's people doing the wrong thing. So this is
Yeah.
actually a pretty good thing. Like, it's going to
Yes.
weed out the people that have not been doing the right thing and perhaps not been charging clients the right way. So I think really to be able to have those conversations and negotiations, we need to know our obligations. So when I was talking to ESSA, they were telling me that there's been like 3 people that have gone to jail for
I
fraud.
did hear that.
Not
Yeah.
EPs, not EPs. And there's a whole bunch. I saw I can't remember where I saw it. But there's a whole bunch of companies that are getting fined hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're doing the wrong thing. So I think
Mhm.
so long as you know your obligations, you're doing the right thing, you diversify in terms of what you're doing in a marketing and a business sense, and you know that the service that you're offering is one that is of high quality,
Mm.
then we don't really need to have panic, I don't think. I think, yes, we're going to be impacted, but I don't think it's panic stations
No.
yet.
And I think yeah, change is not always a bad thing.
Mm,
And there have been lots of businesses that probably haven't been doing the right thing. So this is good. This is what the NDIS is hoping to achieve, is to help the participants use the funding for the right reasons and for the therapeutic evidence-based practices, and to get functional outcomes, to weed out businesses that aren't doing the right thing. And in that way, you look at it and it's a positive. Change is not a bad thing.
totally. So then
Yeah.
it is a long-term funding scheme. So it's not something that we're going to, the government is not going to be able to continue to do, because that's going to be
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah.
So I think, I think that's a really important perspective to have. The
Mm.
other advice that we got on those participants losing funding was to report it through and I'll put the link in the show notes, the complaints
Mm.
link. So because they provided information that was factually incorrect and damaging to participants, that is something that we need to be reporting and appealing. And the advice was that we make the complaint and we also get the participant to make the complaint. So I think that is really, really important, that we are reporting on that when it is, against evidence-based practice and is, it's inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think
Um,
that's important. And the other thing I was going to say, you were talking about marketing and diversifying. The other thing I think, which is relevant, because we've been talking about it, is retaining clients. So,
mhm.
having really good systems and practices in place to retain clients. This is something that I'm doing like an overhaul in my business at the moment. This is something that Em has done really well in her business. And so we've consequently been talking through it. But I think that's also really good. Marketing is one thing, but marketing is expensive. and to keep replacing clients is
Absolutely.
expensive.
Yeah.
So having those systems in place and upskilling teams
Mhm.
so that they're doing a good report, so that they know how to identify and write goals, so that they're taking the right measures. So making sure that there's a mentor in place for these
Mhm.
clinicians.
Mhm.
So what we've got in place at the moment, I do one-on-ones with my girls every week. I have actually got my kids going through Kids Heart Pilates. So I'm experiencing it firsthand so that I can provide feedback for them. I am checking all of their reports, going through their goals, going through everything. I'm encouraging them. A part of our system, and this is on my pre-assessment checklist, is having that conversation with parents, getting any reports that have been done on children, and networking with other health providers that are working with those children. And I feel like my team are mostly really good at this, but I think initially it's quite overwhelming to reach out to other allied health professionals and ask for reports. And parents in some instances are not wanting to do this. But we need to advocate for what we need to set ourselves and the client and the child up for success. So I've said to my team, do not be scared. Say, we need to collaborate with the OT, the speechy, the physio, whoever's working with them, so that we can ensure that we're working towards the NDIS goals in our own scope, so that we can ensure that we're reporting properly and we're collaborating and getting better outcomes to secure the funding.
Mhm.
So we
And if
need to
you're a
be able to
speechy,
communicate
make
that.
sure you collaborate with the EP.
Yes, speeches, please.
Yes, collaborate with the EP. Absolutely. And I mean, that's what we should be doing anyway. For good clinical practice, we should be collaborating. We should be treating the child
Absolutely.
holistic. Holistically, I think we spoke about this in one of our first episodes in the season. That's just good clinical practice, right? So again, the NDIS is making us have good clinical practice. Don't hate me for saying that, and don't hate us for thinking positively about some of the changes that are going to happen from the NDIS. But you have to be thinking that way. Otherwise, the negativity will get too much to you, it will overwhelm you, will start to outrun you. And then we cannot make decisions from a place of being fearful, of scared, because we don't then make the right decisions. Then that's the body telling us we're more of a fight or flight response rather than being able to think logically and soundly.
Mm.
Um, so I think we've given you lots to go from with this episode as an employee, as a person that's working with children that have NDIS funding, as a business owner. If you have any more questions as a business owner, we'd love to hear from you. We don't often cater, we don't talk about business owners or our business as much on here, like from a business point of view, too much. But if you would like to talk to us more, just send us a DM on Instagram. That's probably the best place to find us. Me, Emily Mackey Speechy, Lizzy Dawson EP.
Lizzy Dawson _
EP. Oh no, Lizzy Dawson _
Yeah.
Yes. Or Move Talk Thrive podcast. We hope that this has been encouraging for you and helped to settle any nerves that you may have had, and shift your perspective about the NDIS. So until next time, we will talk to you later. Bye.